Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, I've got a post here from the HBAR Foundation, and I think this is a topic that we need to address. So it says, CBO Gregory L. Bell discusses the importance of decentralized systems like Hedera in the wake of the AWS outage. Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you're aware of what happened. Amazon's web service went down. Which basically caused chaos to multiple businesses, and also crypto exchanges. Okay. And so there was actually only two networks that I'm aware of that didn't go down from this whole outage. And those two networks were Hedera and Chainlink. So we've got this information here, this news. So I want to go through this, and then I'm just going to give you some more of my thoughts about this, because this also does tie into the whole thing of Swift deciding to work with Ethereum to build their layer 2. So let's go through some of this information from the article that I've got here, and then I'll get to my thoughts afterwards. Okay. So sign off. Quote: "This should be a wake-up call." Unquote. Greg Bell, Chief Business Officer at the Hedera Foundation and an expert in digital infrastructure, told Scripps News, calling the outage the equivalent of an, quote, energy outage, unquote. Quote, "The direct impact is certainly in the billions of dollars, with indirect exposure that could be multiples of that. These are major disruptions. From a user experience, if you're unable to access your bank account, or you're unable to book that travel or communicate with your friends, that's a significant inconvenience. But then, from a commercial perspective, if you're a business and know you can't service your clients, that's enormous." Unquote. Bell advised that while fewer companies choose to invest in decentralized or hybrid backups because they typically cost more, considering a switch could be useful for companies to ensure their operations aren't interrupted in the face of future outages. AWS's own report cited, quote, increased error rates and latency, unquote, in its US East 1 region, one of the company's most critical data hubs. Within hours, the issue cascaded through dependent systems worldwide. Analysts emphasized that the outage was not a cybersecurity attack, but rather an internal infrastructure fault. Yet, the result, halted transactions, inaccessible portals, and digital paralysis, was no less severe. Abigail Wright, a business resilience expert with the chamberofcommerce.org, said the event should push organizations of all sizes to take a hard look at their own dependencies, especially since AWS serves as the backbone for so many unrelated businesses. Quote, "Businesses are only as resilient as the weakest link in their service supply chain," unquote, Wright said. Quote, "The recent AWS outage reveals how an upstream provider's lapse becomes downstream business risk. Businesses often think, we're small, we won't be affected, but the reality is that even non-tech companies depend on cloud infrastructure indirectly via vendors, partners, or platforms," unquote. Wright recommends a proactive approach for businesses by reviewing their dependencies on cloud services, vendors, and platforms, and creating a rapid recovery plan while also diversifying infrastructure across a multi-cloud or multi-region option. Quote, "Looking ahead, the question isn't whether another cloud outage will happen, but when," unquote, she said. Okay, right. So let's get into it then. So as I said earlier, the only two networks that I'm aware of that survived this outage with no issues was Chainlink and Hedera. And so to me, that speaks volumes, right? Like that is a huge thing. And so look, this is where, again, I'm telling you guys why I think Hedera is a top cryptocurrency. And this is a huge indicator of that. This shows you that the way Hedera is positioned, they're not going to have these kind of issues. And please believe, as we're getting to this point now where, crypto is looking at being widely adopted, mass adopted, the companies are taking note of this. This was massive. I can tell you now, in my line of work, we were impacted by this. We were impacted, like we were down for a good few hours, and it really made work difficult. Like it's definitely put a strain on my work. So I've seen the impact firsthand. And look, at the end of the day, when these companies are looking around to see what happened here and to start thinking, how can we resolve this in the future? If they can see that Hedera was one of the networks, or let's not say one of the networks, it was one of the only networks that actually had no issues, how do you think that makes Hedera look? What kind of light do you think that puts on Hedera? That's incredible. That is very impressive, because I'm not hearing that any of the top 10 crypto was okay. So we're talking about Hedera only here and Chainlink. So straight away, that says a lot. That's speaking volumes. And so for companies who are thinking, hey, we want to go over to DLT technology, right? What are you going to be thinking about? Oh, well, you remember that big outage? We don't really want to go with, any network that's dependent on AWS servers. So, okay, what networks are there? Well, Hedera had no issues. Chainlink had no issues. It's already there. Hedera's there. So they're going to get huge promotion out of this straight away. And the other thing is as well, is the whole talk about decentralization. You're talking about decentralization, but if a lot of networks are dropping from AWS going down, there's a single point of failure, right? So it kind of goes a bit in the face of decentralization to a degree, right? So to me, it's like, this is a big deal. There's no two ways around this at all. This whole thing was massive. And as it was said here, I think it was Greg who said it, this has cost companies billions. And I can completely understand that, because as I say, it affected my work. So I know how big of a deal this was, because I saw the impacts. So I just want to say, and this is where I have to get to the whole thing with Swift choosing Ethereum. I just don't get it, man. I really just don't get it. And this is why I've said before when we was talking about, Swift saying stuff about XRP. And I'm going to keep that to the side because this isn't an XRP video. But I said before, I do wonder if the people who are deciding this information, are they just really not in touch with crypto? And I stand by that. I do stand by that, because you choosing Ethereum, I get that you're choosing the top 2 cryptocurrency, and I get it's got the most liquidity and it's got the biggest user base, the biggest ecosystem. But if you're talking about actual service in terms of the utility aspect and the things that you want it to be able to do to perform and to scale, it's the worst choice you can go with. It's one of the worst choices you could make. It's such a poor choice. And so this is where I say, I don't know if they really understand crypto. Yes, I get there are people who are probably doing a bit of research and understanding that crypto's here to stay, and I get that tokenization is going to be a big thing. But do they really understand it though? Because going with Ethereum, even if it's not XRP, why not HBAR then? Because that's still a better choice than Ethereum. I really, for the life of me, I get in terms of the, vanity side of it, it's the biggest ecosystem. I get all of that. But when you're talking about what you actually want it to do, picking Ethereum is a terrible choice. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's a terrible choice. And to me, it shows a poor choice of judgment. It really does. To me, it does make me think, I don't know if you really understand how crypto works. Because it's I'm just going to pick the number 2 cryptocurrency. Yeah, but you got to understand that, from a technical aspect, that might not actually be the best choice. Just because it's number 2 in crypto doesn't mean it's actually the best choice, right? Sometimes you might just be paying for the brand, right? It's when you think about clothes and stuff, you might be okay, you can go and pay, $100 for this t-shirt because it's got this name on it, it's this designer name, but you could go and get a better quality t-shirt for way cheaper just because it hasn't got that name, but they work harder to make good quality products, right? So it doesn't always mean just because you're paying more or because you're going with the best, name that you're getting the best product. Not at all. And that's what I mean. It just seems really short-sighted. And so I have to say, I really do think Swift are making a mistake here in terms of picking Ethereum. And look, it's not to say that it's going to be horrible. It might be that they get by, but why get by when you can thrive? If you're not even going to go with XRP, cool, but why not go with HBAR then? Because HBAR is still a better choice than Ethereum. To me, Ethereum is such a poor decision. The fees, the congestion, the latency. It's crazy. I just can't for the life of me wrap my head around that decision. I really can't. Like, I can get, again, just from it's a top 2 cryptocurrency. I get it. I get that. But if you understand crypto, then you still know that that's not the best choice to make. It's just not. So, look, I just want to say, for the people who did experience this and understand this, we know what kind of a big deal this was. We know the impact of this. And so this is something that's going to ripple through in terms of companies and how they're going to try and move forward. We know the impact this is going to have, and they are going to try and be less reliant on AWS. That's clear, because they can't afford to keep having this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that this stuff happens all the time, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, as Greg said, like, this is something that can cost billions. They can't afford to have these types of mistakes, not when there's better technology out there, there's better options out there. And Hedera is the better option. It's one of the better options, evidently. So, I mean, one thing I will say that come out of this that I was glad is that Hedera come out smelling like roses. You know, like, yeah, we had this whole thing and it was hectic and whatnot and it was crazy, but Hedera come out of this looking absolutely great. And so hopefully this is something that will shine a light on Hedera and just show what a great network it is. And that's a great example of that. So for me, I get the feeling that's going to have done a lot for Hedera. We may not see it right now, but I think long term, when companies are looking, you know, mainstream adoption, mass adoption, that's something that's going to be taken into consideration now. The fact that Hedera didn't have no issue with this. It's got no dependency on AWS. That is a big thing, and I think that will speak volumes and it will show in the long term. That's my opinion. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. Take care.